What's up and welcome to the video. Today we're going to talk about this, we'll go with interesting product. This is the second generation HomePod. Now I do have the OG first gen right here on the table as well. And Apple kind of silently dropped the second gen HomePod on us and I was a little surprised because first one came out, it was a little bit of a flop in terms of sales and how popular it was. But nonetheless, Apple went ahead and gave us the second generation, and it is $50 cheaper this time around at launch compared to whenever this one launched. So let's get into it. Let's talk second generation HomePod. Now, the reason why I say the HomePod is an interesting product is mainly tied to the history. So the OG HomePod dropped in 2018 with a starting price of $349. Now, it was expensive, but we got one, we reviewed it, and quick takeaways of the OG, it sounds incredible. And there's a lot of hardware in here. There's a woofer in here, 7 tweeters, and 6 microphones. So at the time, and quite honestly, even right now, if you were to play a song on the OG HomePod, it sounds fantastic. Easily fills a room. It still sounds incredible 5 years after it initially came out. It wasn't that popular though. That was kind of the big issue. So came out in early 18. By early 19, Apple had already dropped the price on it, $50. Went down to $299. That's not something that we historically see Apple do unless they are bringing out a new generation of the product, which in this case, it didn't happen. It just wasn't popular, so they cut the price a little bit. Now, in 2020 is whenever Apple dropped the HomePod Mini, which was smaller, still sounded great, but it was $99, a lot more affordable for a lot of other people to get into. And then in early 21, this HomePod was officially killed off, and we didn't really hear from it again until early 2023 when the second generation drops. Now, we obviously have nothing confirmed. In our personal opinion, what led to the revival of the second generation HomePod was the popularity of the Mini. So OG comes out for $350. A lot of people look at it and think to themselves, that's a big risk in terms of an investment to get involved with a smart speaker. I don't really know how well it's going to do. I don't know if I'm going to like it. And it's also super pricey. Apple brings out the HomePod Mini, which was very, very popular. So much so that they introduced all these like bright, vibrant, fun colors for you to decorate your house with and stuff like that. Super popular. A lot of people got into it. $99 is much less of a risk for a speaker. And then once people got into it, they enjoyed it. They thought to themselves, boy, it would have been great to have like a bigger, much more full-fledged version of this speaker. And here we are, second generation HomePod Mini. Now, they look very, very similar, but there are some key differences with this one compared to the OG. Let's talk about that right now. As far as what's physically different on the outside, for the second gen HomePod, Apple kind of borrowed the design for the touch surface from the HomePod Mini. So as you start to go up, the touch surface actually sinks into the HomePod a little bit, a lot like what you see on the Mini, whereas like on the OG, the touch surface sits much more flush. Personally, I like the look of the OG a little bit better, but what I like on the second gen is the colorful Siri animation on the top actually takes up the whole touch surface. On OG, it was just a little part of the middle. And for those of you who want a much more versatile power cabling system, the power cable on the second gen HomePod is actually removable. It's not on the OG. I mean, so you didn't hear this from me, but like it technically is removable, but please work with your local Apple store if you're trying to remove the power cable on the OG HomePod. But on the second gen, it is very easily removable. So cable management gets a buff on the second gen HomePod. Now, as far as internal hardware goes, we have an interesting combination of both addition and subtraction. So what have they added? They've added some sensors that the OG HomePod doesn't have, a temperature sensor and a humidity sensor. Now, I do want you to know that if those are important and you still want to save money, those are available on the Mini. And with a future update, there will be an ability for the HomePod to hear things like a smoke alarm or a house alarm, and it can notify you on your phone, which I guess is cool if you're out of the house, but like if you're in the house, then just run. But From a speaker perspective, we actually have some subtractions. And I don't know if that's because this is cheaper, but there are 2 less tweeters and 2 less microphones. So naturally that begs the question, how does that affect the audio quality? And here's how we tested that. And we did a couple of things here, by the way. So we started by playing songs individually on OG and second gen, and then we also grouped them together as a stereo pair and listened to music that way. And we'll talk about how each one of those went. But we started with OG, and we played a variety of music from all sorts of different genres at all sorts of different sound levels. And everything we did on OG, we replicated to the T on second generation, including using the same exact input device and all different types of volume levels and all sorts of different stuff. And what we found was really interesting. And I think the best way to summarize it is second gen HomePod hits you with software, first gen HomePod hits you with hardware. So no matter what we played at what volume level, first gen HomePod came through noticeably louder at like all different types of volume levels. The thump and the vibration of the table whenever you would get higher into volumes, or if there was like deep or heavy bass, hit consistently harder on OG HomePod. But where second generation HomePod shined was bringing out all the details of a song, if that makes sense. And I think that comes down to how well Apple calibrated like the software in combination with the hardware on this, because there is less hardware on second generation HomePod, but it's still capable of fantastic sound. So when we played a song here, it was almost like you could discern the layers of the song a lot better on second gen than you could with first gen. But in terms of just like sheer volume, sheer room-filling sound, something that was just going to hit you in the face with just straight-up audio, but still be really, really, really high quality, that's where the OG HomePod just hit a little bit differently than second generation. And the cool part is putting the two of them together as a pair. I mean, you want to talk about room-filling sound in like any type of situation. I tested the both of these in a large living room. I tested the both of them in a small room. Room-filling sound regardless of how you do it. And both of them still have that cool feature where when you plug it in, it does a quick check of its surroundings. You're not going to be able to tell it's doing it, but it does a quick check of its surroundings in order to calibrate how well to project the sound throughout a room. So both of them are great. If you own the OG and you can put it side by side compared to the second gen, hopefully you'll be able to tell what I'm talking about. I'm not an audio professional, a sound engineer, or an audiophile by any stretch of the imagination, but that's kind of what we got just running some basic listening tests on the two of them. They both sound fantastic in their own respects. They just kind of hit you in different ways. And if you put the two of them together as a pair, unbelievable room-filling sound. And so even with all the excellent sound, there's a couple of tough things whenever it comes to the big HomePod. And one is the price. I still think $299 is really, really expensive it's a great quality speaker, don't get me wrong, but it's got such a specific application, right? Like you're going to get the most out of the HomePod if you are very heavily invested into the Apple ecosystem, because this doesn't have Bluetooth, so it's not going to work with anything that doesn't have AirPlay compatibility. And in terms of like, if you wanted something smarter from like the smart speaker perspective, you definitely do have better options than this. And if you just want something that's just straight up audio, no smarts, you also have good options out there, especially at the $300 price point. But the application of the HomePod is very, very specific. And another thing that is really tough about this, and I've seen a couple of like headlines of articles online that say something very similar, is that like, don't buy one, buy two, which at this price point, that's really, really tough to recommend. But I understand why it's a recommendation, because when you pair two of these together, it's incredible. I mean, even Apple's own website, as you're going through the buying process, there's even a little blurb that Apple recommends on their own website that if you want to achieve like stereo quality sound, you should consider buying multiple. But at $299, I mean, let's say you have a living room setup, you have a TV, and you buy two of these. to use as like a stereo speaker setup for a dedicated Apple TV that you have in your living room. You're talking $650 after tax, and that's not even including Apple Care if you wanted to opt for some device protection. There's a good chance that you might spend more on 2 HomePods with tax and Apple Care than you might have spent on the 4K television sitting in your room, especially if you get a TV on sale. So it's just like, I would have loved to see, even though Apple's never going to do it, I would have loved to see Apple do some sort of, like if you buy 2, you get them at a special price or like a discounted price. That would have been really good to see, because I do feel like bundling 2 of these together is going to maximize the quality of the speaker. But if you get one, I still think it's a very, very specific use case scenario. So like, I would ask you to really sit there and evaluate, is this the best case for what I have? Does this fit with everything I have going on in my house? If you have a very Apple-y home and you can use this as a combination of a smart hub and at the same time a very, very, very powerful and capable speaker, then yeah, the $299 might be worth your investment. But there are a lot of options on the market at this price point, and this is such a specific use case product. And the fact that you have to buy, or like the fact that it's recommended to buy 2 in order to maximize, is also really tough. So I don't know. I mean, the OG was a little bit of a flop in terms of sales and just, you know, how popular it was. I feel like this one's kind of heading down that same path, but really only time will tell. I guess we'll see, but that's why I'm here, to try things out and let you know. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like and subscribe button down below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you shortly. Peace.